All right, let's dive into something really clever. We're talking about a cyber attack that doesn't need a fancy new virus. Nope, it actually weaponizes a feature that's already on pretty much every single Windows computer out there, turning the system's own safety net against itself. Let's break down how it works. So, here's the big question, right? How does an attack become truly invisible? Well, what if the bad stuff wasn't being launched by some sketchy new program, but by one of the most trusted core processes in the entire operating system? That is the secret sauce behind the technique we're looking at, an attack that literally hides within the machine's normal day-to-day operations. So yeah, we're basically hunting for a ghost in the machine. We're looking at a technique that takes a feature that was built to help the computer recover from errors and twists it into a secret backdoor for an attacker. It is an absolutely brilliant and pretty devious way to stay hidden. Now, for any attacker that gets into a system, sure, getting access is goal number one, but the real trophy, the ultimate prize, is persistence. That's the ability to just hang out inside that system for a long, long time without anyone noticing. And to do that, you have to be quiet. You have to blend in. You can't be setting off any alarms. Okay, so to really get how this exploit works, we first have to look at the legitimate Windows feature it's abusing. Think of it like we're studying the bank's security layout before the heist goes down. We need to understand the system's built-in safety net. At the very heart of this are Windows services. You can think of these as the silent, essential road crew of your operating system. They're always running in the background, handling everything from your network connection to system updates, and you never even see them. And the person in charge, the big boss keeping them all in line, is the Service Control Manager, or SCM for short. And because these services are so absolutely crucial, Windows is designed with this idea of resilience baked right in. The system has a plan, a what-if scenario, for what to do if one of these essential background programs suddenly fails or crashes. It's a really fundamental part of keeping the whole system stable. And here's how that plan is supposed to work. Step 1, a service fails. It just stops working. Step 2, the Service Control Manager immediately checks the pre-written recovery plan for that specific service. And Step 3, it does what the plan says, which is usually just restarting the service. Simple, helpful, and it keeps your computer running smoothly. But what if you could secretly rewrite that recovery plan? This is where our story gets interesting. This is where the antagonist comes in, a tool called RecoverIt, which cleverly hijacks this entire process. Now, RecoverIt isn't some secret malware from a shadowy hacking group. It's actually a public, open-source tool that a security researcher built. It was designed for what we call red teams. Those are the good guys who act like hackers to test a company's defenses. But of course, once a tool like this is out in the wild, anybody can use it. Here's the strategy, and it's pretty smart. The tool doesn't just pick any random service. It specifically hunts for services that are known to be a little bit unstable, the ones that are prone to crashing on their own, like the UevAgentService. Why? Because if you target a service that's likely to fail anyway, you get a super reliable trigger for your attack. You don't have to force it to crash. You just have to wait for it to fall over. So this is the absolute key. RecoverIt goes in and edits that recovery plan. So instead of the instructions saying, hey, if this service fails, restart it, the tool changes them to say, if the service fails, run this other command, like opening a backdoor back to the attacker. And this is why it's so incredibly stealthy. That malicious command isn't being run by some weird, suspicious file. No, it's being launched directly by services.exe, the Service Control Manager itself, which is one of the most trusted high-level processes in all of Windows. It's like the head of security has been tricked into personally walking an intruder right through the front door, making it look like totally legitimate business. Okay, so to really appreciate how slick this is, let's compare this new technique to the older, much noisier methods that security systems are already trained to look for. This is where you can really see the genius of this approach. This comparison is everything. The old way was to change a service's ImagePath, which basically means swapping out the real program for a fake, malicious one. Think of it like replacing the security guard with an imposter. It's a big, noisy change that security software is constantly watching for. But the RecoverIt method, it's way quieter. It doesn't touch the program at all. It just modifies the failure command, the recovery instructions. It's like secretly rewriting a page in the real guard's instruction manual. The guard is the same, but his orders are now malicious. And this quote from the researcher's own documentation just says it all. Security admins and all their fancy tools, they're laser-focused on watching that ImagePath for changes. And that leaves the recovery settings as this massive, glaring blind spot in a lot of defenses. So if this attack is so hard to see, how in the world do you actually catch it? Let's flip the script and look at it from the defense side and see how security teams can adapt to unmask this seemingly invisible threat. The big challenge here is that all the evidence is disconnected. The standard Windows logs will tell you, hey, this service failed, but they won't necessarily scream, and then we launched a malicious command as the recovery action in that same entry. You get two separate events, and it's up to you to piece them together. So catching this means you have to start looking in new places. Defenders need to monitor those instruction manuals for the services, watching for any unauthorized changes. They have to start giving any new program launched by the trusted services.exe process the side eye. And most importantly, they have to connect the dots, linking a service crash over here with the sudden appearance of a new command prompt over there. Ultimately, the defensive strategy has to evolve. This is all part of a bigger trend called living off the land, where attackers just use the system's own built-in tools against it. So defenders can't just look for known bad files anymore. They have to start watching how legitimate features are being used, or in this case, abused. So after going through all that, what is the single biggest lesson we should take away from this whole clever exploit? It's this. Sometimes the most effective camouflage for an attacker isn't some super complex cloaked piece of malware. It's the system's own trusted, legitimate tools. Hiding in plain sight is often the best strategy because defenders are programmed to look for things that seem out of place, not for familiar tools being used in a malicious way. And that leaves us with one final, pretty important question to think about. If a simple recovery feature can be twisted into a stealthy weapon like this, what other trusted, everyday parts of our operating systems are just sitting there, waiting to be the next target?